Hello, and welcome to another episode of the original Intersex Connect Live, the place where people in and affecting the intersex community come together. I'm your host, Joseph Benedict, and today's episode we are joined by Cody Smith, the Senior Projects Manager at Intersex Human Rights Australia. Cody will be talking about Canberra legislation, their organization, services that they provide, and so much more. This is an interactive broadcast, so we'll be able to respond to your comments and questions real time. Hey, everybody, it is so cool to see everybody. Obviously, you might have noticed a change in the show. The first thing I want to point out is the music. God, we needed new music, and I love that music so much better than what we had before. It gets me all fired up, and I would like to thank bensound.com for providing that music to us at no cost. It's BEN sound.com. bensound.com provided the music for us. And on another musical note, we're going to bring in our beautiful co-host, Julie.
Hi. Yes, I am so excited to be a part of this, and thank you so much for asking me to co-host. I'm looking forward to the future of this program and this platform, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. And yes, thank you, Ben Sound. I totally was bouncing around in my seat prior to showtime, just with the new music we selected. And also, speaking of music, and in honor of today's show, we wanted to mention a special shout out to an Australian and American and really global music icon that we lost last week, Miss Olivia Newton-John. We love her music, and we just thought it would be appropriate to share our thoughts about her and her career as we talk to Cody today from Australia. I'm really excited about this show. How have you been, Joseph?
I've been very well. How have you been?
Good. Lots of good things going on in the world with intersex.
Yeah, there are. They're trying to get rid of. They got rid of it in Greece, and they're
Kenya.
Kenya. Thank you.
Yes.
My brain hurts.
Like you had said previously, a lot of the dominoes are starting to fall in our favor, and that is huge.
Yes, and we got off of our ban from YouTube, so we can actually even talk about it here in America. We finally got to the point where we're allowed to talk about it. Woo!
It's very exciting.
Other countries are banning it. We can't even. We can barely talk about it. So, anyway, Julie is going to be the new co-host of the show for the foreseeable future. Anyhow, we needed some eye candy on the show, obviously, and so we brought Julie in for that. But Julie, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're an intersex advocate, and then if you could introduce our guest at the end of that, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. So I am XXY, and I have had I've done this show before, and we have talked about how I'm not your average XXY. We often talk about how intersex and a lot of the variations on the spectrum are a spectrum. And, you have often said if you've met one intersex person, you have met one intersex person. Same with XXY. Not every XXY is going to present and have the same issues that a fellow XXY would have. And my journey has definitely been extreme in some cases. At 43, the National Institute of Health here in America had cited and let me know that I needed to go on copious amounts of estrogen and change my vessel from male to female just to be able to have a quality of life and live a little bit longer.
Have a life, right?
Well, I already had a life, but absolutely just to have a better quality going forward because of lupus and osteoporosis and being born with one ovary and one testicle and a partial uterus and a partial cervix floor. The joke on TikTok this week is somebody asked me, because of your skeletal system, because I have the lower skeletal system of a female, but the upper skeletal system of a male. Somebody said, oh my gosh, what if you were murdered and they only found your bones? what would they be able to tell about you? And I said, I think they would scratch their heads and think that it had been a double homicide. But I mean, that's the joke, and I like to pull the punches first. Anyway, I advocate because it's important to let people know that we do exist, that we are here, and we are viable. And you know, there's a lot of us, and because of platforms like this and social media as a whole, we're able to come out in full force now and share our stories. And sharing our stories is absolutely the only way that we're going to change perceptions and make changes in society. And on that note, I would like to bring in our guest today, Cody Smith, all the way from Australia, and Intersex Human Rights Australia. Hi, Cody.
Hello, everyone. It's very exciting to be here.
Hi, Cody.
Very rough to be here. I tell you what, there's no good angle to get at 3 a.m. Like you kind of just got to go into it. It's just sort of like, 3 hours earlier, I'd be fresher. 3 hours later, I'd be waking up.
Yes, it's hard to be beautiful at 3 a.m., isn't it?
Oh,
so
wait,
I can't thank you enough for being here at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, no less.
We're all on different time schedules. I'm at
Yeah,
1 o'clock in the afternoon. You're at 3 a.m. in the morning, and Jessup's in Las Vegas at 10 a.m. So,
yep, 10 a.m.
Well, I can tell you at the moment that tomorrow for you guys is looking pretty good at the moment.
Well, that's good. Thanks.
World hasn't ended yet.
good.
That's good to know. So, Cody, I always ask everybody the same question to begin the show, and that is, are you intersex? And if so,
I am.
what is your variation? Just a brief description of what that is.
Well, I'm going to be a little bit spicy here because, there's I don't think there's any shame in it. I'm proud of being intersex, but I don't like to mention what particular variation I have because I think it lends itself to gatekeeping. I think that there's a lot of people who feel like you need to have a diagnosis in order to, get access to peer support, to get access to services, to be legitimately intersex. And I just feel like it's more important for me to sort of like role model to other intersex people that it's okay to be private, it's okay to keep it to yourself. It doesn't make you more or less legitimate either way. But what I will say is that I did experience medical intervention shortly, like in the first 2 years of my life. I grew up sort of like raised female. And then I found out I was intersex when I was 17, and I've more or less come out as non-binary since then. So that's sort of like, I guess, my journey from to sort of like my authentic self as is sort of like the nice language for that kind of thing. So
that's awesome. It took me a lot longer to make that journey. I didn't start until I was 50, 45, 50 years old. I started that journey.
And I also was diagnosed at 17 in the United States, Cody, and I do have to ask, because I get asked a lot this question. What was that like for you at 17?
I was diagnosed from birth. It was because obviously a lot of the standard procedure is, fix up the abnormal bits and then keep it a secret. It was just sort of like I reached the point where, my mum sat me down and was like, you can't turn 18 without knowing this about yourself. And we had that sort of like conversation. And it was sort of like hard to wrap my head around it. I guess it took me a couple of years to sort of fully realize what impact being intersex had on my life, how much it had informed sort of my childhood and how I was raised. And I guess that's why it sort of became important to be able to, externalize that, acknowledge that in an external way. So I guess I see like a female gender identity as something that was inflicted on me as violence. So these days I'm very, very comfortable sort of rejecting that. So we're having a conversation about pronouns earlier, and honestly, I'm okay with anything except she, her.
And in knowing that, sorry, Jessup, in learning that at 17, how long was it before you decided you wanted to go into advocacy?
I mean, I've always had a very strong sense of justice. I was very, very infamous as a kid for boycotting McDonald's. I learned about McLibel, which was case in the UK where there was protesters handing out pamphlets about all the environmental vandalism that McDonald's were responsible for, and McDonald's decided to just sue them into the ground. And I sort of thought to myself, well, that's not fair. It's like this big multinational corporation like bullying the little guy, and I just refused to eat McDonald's for, I don't know, like 20 years. And I guess like that's always been my thing, is that I've always had a sense of right and wrong in the world, and what happened to me as an intersex person was wrong. And I guess like as soon as I had the opportunity to try and make right, that's what I fixated on. And, you know, we're getting awfully close to it now.
Awesome. So I kind of want to get into the conversation about the Canberra legislation and intersex and all of that. But to clear some things up, because being in America, I read these things and I don't always have everything correct. So the ACT is the Australian Capital Territory, which is where you live in Canberra. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So Australia has, has in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Has 6 states and 2 territories. I had to really think about that. Geography has never been my strong point. I can't imagine what it's like being a student in America and trying to remember 50 states. That sounds like a nightmare to me.
It helps if you go to them. No.
So basically, territories have different constitutional rights, and the ACT was basically picked at the midpoint between Sydney and Melbourne, which were the 2 major, like, biggest cities in Australia. And this location was picked for basically to build the capital city. So the ACT is a very small territory in the middle of New South Wales, which is mostly made up of a big national park called Namadgi. And then Canberra is the capital city. So we have our parliament here. We have a whole lot of national galleries and monuments and libraries and stuff. And there's honestly nowhere else I'd rather live. It's fantastic here.
Awesome. So now your political people seem to be doing, I don't know if America's copying them or they're copying America, but they're trying to gain political points by discriminating against transgender people in sport. Could you open our eyes a little bit about what's going on in that arena in Australia?
I think there's a few factors to this. I think to me, one of the keys to understanding sort of like global transphobia at the moment is there's an American organization, the Family Research Council, and they basically realized they'd already lost the fight against marriage equality, and they basically wrote out what was a 5-point plan to erase trans people from being able to live a public life. And the 5 steps were basically ban them from the military so that they don't have any public credibility and can't access healthcare. It was ban them from bathrooms so that it's harder for them to, exist in public life. And that seems to have just been the blueprint for like this huge global movement, which, has its roots in American conservatism, certainly, but has gained a lot of traction in the UK. And Australia has been so far pretty resistant to it, but we do have a bit of a lunatic fringe of religious conservatives who have, stirred up a little bit of trouble. But largely, Australia is a fairly progressive place when it comes to a lot of sort of queer rights, LGBTQIA plus sort of rights. Yeah. And certainly the ACT where I live is one of the most progressive jurisdictions in Australia. So
that's good.
I'll put it this way. So we have the Liberal Party, the Labor Party, then we have a whole bunch of minor parties. The Liberal Party is actually our Conservative Party. This is something that Americans always seem to struggle with. The Liberal Party,
our party's flipped in the 1958, and people don't realize that, so they have a problem with that because our Republicans used to be the Democrats, and Democrats used to be Republicans, and they flipped in 1958 for some reason.
Elephants and donkeys everywhere. Elephants and donkeys everywhere.
That one.
Then we have the Labour Party, which is the other major party. So that's sort of like the Union Party, the Party of the Workers, and all that. We also have the Greens. Have is pretty much our sort of far left party. Then you have all sorts of like minor parties and independents, and so our parliament is sort of like a big old mishmash of that. But the Liberal Party has been in power for the last 9 years. We went to a federal election this year. And one of the issues that was campaigned on was transphobia. The Liberal Party ran a candidate, I forget where, called Catherine Deves, who like largely platformed transphobia. We also have a politician trying to run anti-trans and sports bills at the moment. But one of the things that we observed in the election was a huge swing to the left. So Labor is currently in power with a lot of with one of the biggest segments of Greens we've ever had in Australia's political history, and what are called the Teal Independents. So the Teal Independents are largely conservative independents who might have run as Liberal Party members. But they basically ran with a huge environmental platform. So obviously there's like climate change was one of the key issues for our election. So I'd like to think of that as, there's like this big push towards environmentalism, but I think part of that is actually a backlash against sort of the queerphobia and transphobia that we've been seeing elsewhere.
I hope so. Because that means it'll happen here in America too, coming up in November. I hope. So anyway, I want to go on to this document. I know it as the ACT document, but it actually has a different name, and Bosch has a thing of it. But anyway, they put together a document about the anti-discrimination against LGBT and intersex people are included in that. Can you straighten me out? First of all, what's the name of the document? The Darlington Statement. There we go. Just had to make me look dumb first, huh, Bosch? Oh, anyway, the Darlington Statement. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So the Darlington Statement was it was a coming together of intersex people 5.5 years ago. And we basically sat in a room for 3 days and argued a lot. And what we produced was basically what we term a consensus document. And the idea is that it's basically a big old wish list. It's like, this is what we as intersex people need for intersex justice and intersex liberation in Australia. So we created the Darlington Statement. We've subsequently supported other rights statements. So we've published statements supporting the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which is in support of Indigenous rights. We've also supported the Canberra Statement, which supports refugee rights. And then the other thing we've done is we've given people the ability to also sign the Darlington Statement. So we were 20-something people at the original Darlington retreat that produced this document. But we've had, last time I counted, about 80 other intersex people sign the document. We've had a number of intersex organizations sign the document. And we've had countless other sort of like human rights organizations and private individuals sign on to the document as well. So this basically just has given us the ability to walk into a politician's office and say, these are the intersex issues we need fixed, and this is who it matters to. And that's been extremely influential in basically all activism since then. It's also resulted in a number of other sort of rights documents being produced in other countries, which has been really cool. So I know Intersex Asia has its version of the Darlington Statement, and there's a mob in Africa who've also produced their own statement. I think there's one in Europe as well. So that's been really cool to see, as sort of like other activists sort of adopt this sort of structure and produce their own sort of consensus statement.
Right. We did put a link to the Darlington Statement in the comments, so that if people would like to look at it further, the link is in the comments.
If you want to read it,
go ahead.
If you want to read it, that's great. And if it's something that you think you want to support, then by all means sign it yourself. Like, I always push the Darlington statement pretty aggressively.
I'll definitely sign it. I'm sure Jessup will too, and so will Bosch. I don't think we have anything like that here in the States, and maybe that's something we look at the original Intersex Connect for standing behind and starting.
It's a good way of getting people on the same page, fighting for the same things. And it's a living document. So hopefully, as the conditions in Australia change, we'll keep iterating it and making it better until we're sort of addressing the needs of everyone.
I think that's super important. I think that I like what you're saying, that Asia already has one and some of the other countries are starting to follow suit. I think that would be something we certainly need to focus on here in America, in these states. Where would you like to see, just in the next year, where would you like to see advocacy for intersex rights in Australia go?
So, oh boy, this is going to tie us pretty neatly into the next topic, is that for the last 3 years,
segues.
The last 3 years, we've been working on a piece of legislation in the ACT. Obviously, if we enact, we're probably looking to enact that by the end of the year, I would hope. Fingers crossed. I should probably be touching wood somewhere. Blah, blah. So I'd like to see that legislation passed, and then obviously we're only protecting people in the ACT if we do that. So obviously I want to see this adopted either at the state level or at a federal level. So now we have a new government, we have new opportunities to explore the possibility of federal legislation, but we need that protection right across Australia.
I know it's 3:00 in the morning. You wouldn't have to know the name of that legislation, would you?
Oh, not a chance.
So I'm thinking that's the one that I was reading yesterday, and for some reason it was called the ACT, from what I could tell. But it does go into protections for intersex people as far as discrimination in the workplace and housing and things like that. But I didn't see anything in that particular statement about intersex surgeries. And
that's it. I just got the bill up. So the current the current name for it in the consultation draft is Variation in Sex Characteristics Restricted Medical Treatment Bill 2022.
All right, I'm gonna have to read that later. And can you say the first part one more time for me? I'm sorry.
The Variations in Sex Characteristics Restricted Medical Treatment Bill.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of like that they said variations in sex characteristics and didn't call it a disorder. I mean, I know we're splitting hairs, but I mean, I know it's a bill that we don't like, but I like the fact that they said variations in sex characteristics and not, hey, disorders or any of the
yes, it goes on with the baby steps. It's not everything that as an intersex person that we would like to have, but it does have mention of intersex people and that we do exist, and people that have a variation outside of the binary do exist, and the fact that they're recognizing that is, to me, a huge step just to even have those words in legislation in any country.
Yeah, so one of the significant things that was very, very important to this bill is obviously we have an understanding of, we have this understanding of an intersex community where we describe ourselves as intersex, we stand by intersex pride and so on. But we have people for whom it is a medical condition, for people for whom it is a disorder, people who embrace that DSD terminology. And even, people who, may only be aware of themselves by a diagnosis and have no concept of that fitting into this larger idea of community or this larger picture. And what this bill needs to be is something that protects the rights of all these people in a way where, people have access to what they want. And that's been really, really challenging. But variations in sex characteristics is supposed to be like a non-pathologizing term where we're not forcing language on anyone. It's a literal descriptor. So we're not telling people who are happy to describe themselves as having a DSD, we're not telling them that they're intersex, but they're also not telling us that we're disordered. So, and
I like that.
Important. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is. Also, we put a link to the bill in the comments, so if anybody wants to read the bill and take a look at it, they are welcome to do so. I want to kind of go on to the next subject if we can, because Cody, you and Julie have something in common as far as your intersex advocacy. Thank you, advocacy. Your intersex advocacy. You've had some similar experiences, whereas people have been less than kind, for lack of a better description. I was wondering if you two could maybe explore that subject for us.
Less than kind?
Have you had pushback from other people in the intersex community? I guess is what
I'm trying to avoid the word turf, but you being attacked by people that just don't get it.
Well, first off, can you explain your understanding of what a turf is? Because Jessup and I had said earlier this week, even here, people have very different ideologies surrounding what that would be. So can you explain kind of what an intersex turf would be for you? Or
I sort of didn't realize this is where this is the direction we're going in. So obviously TERF, the term is an acronym for Trans-Exclusionary Radical Feminist. This was a self-elected term for, I guess, like at the root stage of the movement, if you want to call it that. They also describe themselves as gender critical and so on and so forth. Really, the most consistent ideology across these sorts of labels is just being anti-trans. And how that translates in the intersex community is you have people who rigidly believe that all intersex variation or all variations in sex characteristics can be subdivided into male and female, that it is correct to do so. And obviously, the main issue with that is it lends itself to normalization arguments, which is the basis for, medical intervention, medical violence. So I guess, I've had some very interesting conversations online. Pushback sounds vindictive, and I think I don't feel any anger or hatred towards these people. It's more that how's the best way to put this? Wow, I'm really struggling with this at 3:30 a.m.
Let me help a little bit. I can help in just saying that, for me, I often say it's just not in their wheelhouse. I can't hate them for not understanding something that they've never been taught, or that's never really been presented to them in a way that they have to acknowledge that it exists in their kind of bubble. And, I come across as an advocate, not only on my own platform and on this platform, but certainly just being very vocal in public on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. I come across TERFs and individuals that will say, well, you can't have children, so you're not viable, and that always just goes, because there are plenty of people in the world that can't have children, and they're not intersex. They just can't have children. Like, I think that notion in itself is just bullshit.
Well, if that notion is correct, every woman that has a hysterectomy had a sex change operation, if that's the standard. So, and I don't think every woman that's had a hysterectomy would admit that they had a sex change operation. So that whole standard right there is just wrong.
It's just bogus. But I mean, in that sense, I just always say sometimes I can't be mad at them when that's what they've been taught. And it's just not in their wheelhouse. And all I can do is continue to advocate and continue to share my story because that's what's going to make the difference in the end, is all of us sharing collectively our stories and trying to change perceptions in that way. So maybe that helps you a little bit in just trying to describe.
I think there's all sorts of interesting ideas. I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of fear in that sort of like, I suffered to have this particular identity, or like I experienced this traumatic violence for a reason, and if I acknowledge sort of like, I guess, the transgender experience, then that's taking something away from me. It's almost like this idea of stolen valor, which like, I'm empathetic to that, even if I don't necessarily understand it. But it's sort of like, I used to have a view of the world where, there was good and evil and right and wrong. But I don't think it's actually that anymore. I think it's more like you have people who want to build something and you have people who want to take something. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build human rights for everyone. And what they want to do is take human rights away from me. Like, these are people who wouldn't acknowledge me as non-binary, who would suggest that the medical violence that I experienced was justified, and that's how I'm like, those are the cards I was dealt, and that's how I have to live. And the reality is that I was unhappy living that life, and I found something I'm safe and comfortable with now. Like, I would not be as proud or as confident or as loving or as I am. Like, all the qualities that I love in myself now are not things I would have access to if I sort of stuck down the path that was chosen for me all those years ago.
I can understand that. My path changed quite a bit as I went through life. I didn't find out I was intersex and that I was surgically assigned my sex until much later in life, because I was the family secret and everybody lied to me. And I often try to keep in mind the fact that if it wasn't actually happening to me, it would be very hard for me to believe it. Like, if somebody came up to me and told me my story, I'd be like, whoa, you're high. Can I have some of that? It's like, but having lived it and all of that. So, with the people that are starting arguments and stuff online with me constantly, a lot of them are open-minded and getting educated and learning. And there's always the ones that are argumentative and telling you all that. But I take advantage of that to put more information into that, because I go with these groups that have like 40,000 people in them, and they're all very conservative and very sex is binary, and I go and educate them, and some people catch on, some don't. And the ones that argue with me, though, give me so many more opportunities to put more information into that argument. It's like, oh, well, you think that? Well, here's another thing, another link that will help you understand. And then another link. And then I get messages from people that never commented on the thing. They're like, thank you so much for explaining this. I really do appreciate it, but I'm not going to comment on that because people tear me up.
I'm always happy to have my mind change. I'm always willing to take on new data. I'm always willing to listen to new viewpoints and new arguments. But I think that when I present that to other people and they hear that, they think that they can change my mind. And the reality is that every time I have an argument, really what it ends up doing is it gives me more data points, but it helps me crystallize my views and express them in more meaningful ways. But, if it came out tomorrow that, all the work I've been doing over the last 8-9 years is wrong and it's doing harm to my community, well, then the next thing I want to do is find what's best for my community. Like, I'm not here to be in the right. I'm here to do the most good I can in this world with the life I've got.
There you go. Can't ask for more than that, can you? So
they often say too, you often hear throughout pop culture and different media, and even my sister's favorite quote is a Rumi quote, and paraphrased, it's, be the change that you want to see in the world. So I applaud you for doing that.
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why I did want to talk about, I guess, intersex TERFs is because, we've tried to design legislation that protects them as well. Like, our ideas often get bastardized to this idea of like ban surgery, ban medicalization of children, just stop cutting up intersex babies kind of rhetoric. But it's actually a lot more complex than that, because you have it becomes a question of consent, it becomes a question of autonomy, it becomes a question of information over time, it becomes a question about social pressure. It's sort of like, how do you protect children who grow up in a social context that only allows them to be male or female? How do you create the conditions where they feel right about their body? How do we bring about more pride and so on and so forth? But it's also like, if you have a child and they reach 16 and they have all the information and they're able to make medical decisions for themselves, why shouldn't they be able to consent to surgery? And then it also becomes a question of, if you ban all surgery to intersex children, what sort of problems can that cause? So one of the big things about the legislation in Canberra, the legislation in the ACT, is, we're trying to create a system that can accommodate all these different experiences, all these different viewpoints, and create the conditions for intersex people to make better choices for themselves, but also just be in control of their own destiny, really. That's always been at the core of this legislation. It's always been very important to it.
I like that, because I spend a lot of time talking about the ending of surgeries, but I also spend a lot of time saying that that is only a part of the problem, because the rest of the problem is that these children need to be able to participate in sport, and they need to be able to go to the bathroom and not get beat up because they're a little bit different. So we have to educate everybody so that this child can have a proper education and be able to participate in sport at 8 years old, when it doesn't really matter what sex or gender they are. And so, yes, I think stopping the surgeries is like 25% of the problem, and educating the planet is 75% of the problem.
And I think another big part that people don't realize, I've certainly pushed it in my advocacy, is that, for decades we've been aborted. That parents find out that they're going to have an intersex baby of some sort on the spectrum, and the medical community has said, get rid of them. You're going to have social issues. People aren't going to understand what you're going through. Doctors aren't going to necessarily understand how to treat your child. So just get rid of them now, so you don't have that problem, and we don't have that problem, and they don't have that problem. And I think there is a huge that is a huge misnomer for not even people in our community. But I often always tell people, I was born with half a pancreas. XXY happens in the developmental stages of birth, and I have half a pancreas, and people all the time go, oh, well, you must have diabetes. Nope, I sure don't.
Hopefully the good half.
And I always say, you say we're not viable, and doctors say get rid of us and we're not normal, we don't fit anything. But maybe the cure to diabetes lies within the intersex community. Maybe the cure to certain things that we face and we go through with our bodies hold the cure to something else. And so I think that's huge. That's part of it too, And in 2017, here in the United States, 65% of new parents that found out they were going to have an intersex baby on the spectrum and advised to aborted. There's still a huge fear mongering that's sat throughout our community.
I feel like it's important to say that our value is not what our bodies can contribute to science, though. our value is not a cure for diabetes. Our value is that we exist. We've always existed, and like we have
I mean,
as
that's
much
fair.
right to
I wasn't
exist as
trying to
anyone else.
say, I wasn't trying to
Yeah.
necessarily say that cats are only fit. I was just saying that we know so little. You know, take the brain. The brain is the biggest organ in the body, and we still know so little about the brain and how it functions. And
Technically, the skin is the largest organ.
Yeah.
being corrected. Look at me being corrected. But my point is, we still just know so few about so many things when it comes to the body, and I think that especially with genetics and variations, we've not even hit the tip of the iceberg. So I just think it is important as we educate and advocate that, yes, Jessup was saying, you know, that's 25% is the surgeries, and that is important. But there is so much more to who we are as humans, and that we're all viable. We're all viable on this
Absolutely.
point.
We certainly deserve medical care, proper medical care.
It's obviously been an important part of the Darlington statement. Like that was sort of like the driving idea behind the Darlington statement. But it becomes this thing like, I don't know if you had this sort of experience in America. I don't know if you had this experience in America, but it was sort of like after the passage of gay marriage, it felt like the LGBT community sort of clocked this big win and then all went to bed, and sort of like it felt like this was the big insurmountable thing that we had to get past to do everything else, and then we got past it and then nothing else happened, and it's just been an uphill battle sort of since.
My comment on that is that they were all they say that they were out for human rights, but they were only out for their own rights, because as soon as they got their own rights, they went home.
And certainly my observation has been is that there's a lot more interest in stuff like conversion therapy, and we've recently had a bit of discussion around the religious discrimination bill, which would basically enshrine the right to religious to discriminate against queer people on the basis of religion. So it's sort of like the issues that affect the sort of like LGB always seem to end up being the big ticket issues while the rest of us struggle along. Which, you know, I'm as gay as anyone else. So I'm as queer as they come, but like these rights are also important to me. It's all important to me. Like, I think that's one of the things when you get into advocacy, you have this one issue you're going to die for, but there's just so much else that always matters, and it always matters, and it always matters. It's you can't really pick anything that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, because, I mean, basic human rights should be for basic humans, all humans, and it doesn't seem like it's that big of a stretch. But I came from a whole different area of the mental spectrum before I became an intersex advocate, so I understand how those people think, because I used to be one of them. And it's just so very important to make sure that you have your information together and that you can make a cohesive argument that they cannot just dismiss and pretend that it didn't happen, you know?
Well, it looks like we are coming up on the end of our show, and we always are open to having guests back because there's always so much to talk about, especially in our community. But we are coming up.
It really flew by.
It does. Well, look, when you're having fun and it's conversation and it's 3:00 in the morning in Australia, you know. That one. So we want to do something really fun that we want to introduce to our platform.
Before you do that, real quick,
sure.
If Cody, how would people get a hold of you if they want more information about you and your efforts?
Oh boy,
we have a website.
Have a good, decent, centralized sort of professional persona. Like I'm easiest
Twitter's
to
probably
get.
quickest, right?
Yeah, Twitter's good. At Mango Jester on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook relatively easy. I think most people find me on Facebook. Yeah, let's leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Julie, go ahead. I just wanted to make sure we knew how to get a hold of Cody.
Absolutely. And of course, we're going to run her links on the program and on our website so everybody can get in touch with Cody as well and find out more about ACT and the Darlington. And so that's going to always be the case. And you'll always be able to watch this show on our YouTube channel and go back and see past episodes that we do as well. So that's important to know as well. So we're going to start doing something on the show where we want people to just get to know you outside of advocacy and find out what an interesting human you are. And so we do kind of at the end of the show, we're going to start doing just kind of 5 questions, and they're just kind of easy, fly by the seat of your questions. They're not going to be the same every week. I always laugh and say, let's put 5 seconds on the clock. It's going to be a little bit longer than that. But so let's get started. Cody, in Australia, if somebody has never been to Australia before, what is an area of Australia that they absolutely should see or visit?
I mean, I'm always going to be a fierce advocate for Canberra. We've got all the monuments, we've got all the galleries, we've got all the sort of like political history. Like, I really genuinely feel like there's something for everyone in Canberra, and I love it here. Come in the autumn, because we're one of the few places in Australia that gets genuine 4 seasons, and autumn's just the best temperature, and you get to see some beautiful colors all over the place.
A lot of people love fall, so I'm sure it is beautiful over there. Out of all the indigenous animals in Australia that we don't have here in the United States, what would be your favorite?
I mean, it's got to be the platypus, doesn't it? Like, it's a bit of a freak of nature. I'm a bit of a freak of nature. We're both sort of a mashup of other more commonly understood things and a little bit special. Also, just like the platypus, obviously, all intersex people have a venomous bite.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that. I often joke that I'm coming back in my next life as a great white shark, which is not venomous, but it's a really big mouth, and y'all have some great white sharks over there too. So I kind of want to come shark diving in Australia.
Also, shout out to the blue ring octopus, which kind of looks like the intersex flag.
Yes,
I like it.
I love it. Okay,
so I need to clarify one thing before you move on. Autumn in Australia is what? May?
June? March to May.
March to May. So
basically our spring, it's flipped.
Correct.
So our spring, their autumn. Let's see, another fun question. Vegemite. You know, I know that's an old school Australian thing, but what's it taste like?
Honestly, the best analog I can come up with is soy sauce. Like, it's strongly salty, it's strongly umami. It looks like Nutella. It looks like a spread, but you use it like a condiment. You use it very sparingly in it, but it goes great with like any range of toppings. So, like, I grew up eating Vegemite and cheese toast. That's very common. It goes great with like a scrape of Vegemite with some scrambled eggs or fried eggs, or avocado is another popular topping. Just as long as you sort of have something to mellow it out, because otherwise it's just a flavor that takes over everything.
Well, we know you're not a fan of McDonald's necessarily, but is there fast food in Australia? And if there is, what's kind of your go-to?
I mean, yeah, of course we have. What's fast food that's unique to Australia? We have a chicken place called a Porto, which I'm partial to. They do like a spicy chicken burger with pineapple that I really like. Actually, we have, I guess, like a classically iconic Australian dish is the burger with a lot. So you have a fish and chip shop, your local takeaway, and the burger with a lot has it has to have pineapple and a fried egg. And bacon, and it can have anything else. But the thing that and beetroot, it have to have pineapple, beetroot, and a fried egg. It can have anything else on it, but those are the three things that make it a burger with a lot.
I mean, you had me into beetroot. I feel like Jessup could find a burger like that in Vegas, no problem. I feel like
it is legitimately the best thing. I don't know why Americans are so sort of like put off by beetroot on a burger, but
I just don't like beetroot because it tastes like dirt. But I mean, that's my personal. That's my personal opinion.
It's sort of sweet and tangy. I guess to us, it's kind of like putting pickles on a burger.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Well, I don't like Vegemite or Nutella, either one. So there's a lot of stuff in Australia I don't eat.
Your last question for us today is: we already consider you a superhero. I consider a lot of advocates superheroes. But if you were a true superhero, what would your name be and what would your power be? It's a two-part.
Oh, boy, you're forcing me to be creative at 3:52 in the morning.
It's the best time. It's the best time to be creative. We can help you with the name if
no. I just remembered something. I wish I had the picture with me right now. So there was an ongoing joke because obviously one of the things that I do as an advocate is we do like a lot of public talking and public education. And whenever I did it for free, I'd have people come up to me afterwards, just like, oh, that was fantastic. I'm sorry we couldn't pay you. Like, what's something we can do to help you out? And I always told them, send an email to my boss. And I didn't tell you to use the words charismatic stallion, but if you did, I'd see it as a favor. And after my boss got the third email referring to me as a charismatic stallion, they come into the back office and were just like, do you put people up to this? And I was like, no, I think it's just my natural charisma. So we actually turned that into like a superhero character where it's just me with a horse head beating people with a dictionary. But like in terms of superpowers, I'm a big fan of chain lightning. Like anytime you get to shoot lightning and it just bounces around and stuff, like that's my favorite thing in a video game. Like that's the power I want.
I mean, the charismatic stallion with chain lightning and a dictionary. I love it.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I love it.
Jessup, do you want to take us out today?
All right, Cody, first of all, I would like to thank you so very, very much for being up at 3 o'clock in the damn morning just so you can talk to us when I'm
My absolute pleasure.
That if nothing else, sleeping would be a better option. And I appreciate it. You've been very coherent for this time of day and very articulate and informational, and I so appreciate it. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Julie, thanks for being our new co-host and adding to the show and making things even better than they have been before.
Thank you so much, Jessup.
All right, so then we're gonna get this thing to work for me, and then we're gonna take ourselves on out of this show. Unless you have anything you'd like to add on the end of your first show.
No, it's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to the future. And I think we're going to be able to bring a lot of dynamic education and guests on board. And I'm going to be showing these shows also on the Just Julie platform. So we'll be doing double duty with reaching millions and really changing perceptions for our community and also for the world. So I'm excited, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's great having you. All right, then. So we're going to take ourselves on out of here. Before I say anything else, though, I do want to thank everybody that's ever watched this show, been a guest on this show, participated in this show, and made this show what it is so that it was restored to YouTube as a necessary, important programming that is on YouTube. Thank you.
And we have to thank our producer, Boss Bodie, and
absolutely
his show He Said on Friday nights. And so we are doing our best to change the world And we're lucky that you want to come and enjoy that our viewers want to come and enjoy our shows and spend time with us. So thank you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to the original Intersex Connect Live. To find out more information about any of our guests, the original Intersex Connect Live, or to watch prior episodes, leave comments, or connect to us on social media, visit us at linktr.ee/intersexconnect. That's linktr.ee/intersexconnect. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss future programs, articles, special announcements, events, and even more. If you're interested in volunteering to help create the original Intersex Connect Live, we could use your help. Visit our website and send us a message. I'm Justin Benedict. For Julie and myself, we'll see you next time on the original Intersex Connect Live.
Bye, everybody.